Jackson Hinkle joins me as my first guest this evening. He's the smartest 23-year-old I have ever met, and I include myself at the age of 23, and I was pretty smart. Jackson Hinkle, US-based political analyst, host of the unmissable Legitimate Targets. Before I hear from you, Jackson, amongst the many whimsies which constituted 4 hours of interrogation for me, in which not a single substantive question was asked, not a question about anything I had done, said, written, read, or any person I'd been in the proximity of, not one. But there was a question about Jackson Hinkle. They're mighty interested, and so they should be. The whole world should be interested in Jackson Hinkle's views. Jackson, I don't know where to start touring the horizon. Let's start with Netanyahu's disastrous trip to the rostrum in the UN General Assembly in New York. It bombed, if you'll forgive the pun.
It definitely did. I first want to say thank you so much for having me on your show again. And I am very happy to have you doing this show tonight as a free man. You and Gayatri being so criminally treated by this government that will gladly welcome the former AQ leader. I'm not going to say the exact word because I don't want to get banned on YouTube for you, but you all know what Mr. Jolani was doing in Syria and Iraq before he was the president of Syria. So you have the defense minister of the UK who's welcoming this terrorist into your country and giving him the royal treatment. You've got meetings with the Israeli genocidal president at 10 Downing Street. But if you stand up for Palestine, if you stand against the lies that are being pushed about Russia, if you stand for truth in the development of China, then I guess you will be detained in the UK. You'll be charged. You'll be detained under a terrorism act. This is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard of. So I'm very happy to have you free and Gayatri free. And as for the events at the United Nations, I can't say that I'm surprised because this is exactly how the world should be reacting when a genocide is taking place. You know, a lot of people seem shocked by this in the mainstream media, but I think average people like you and me, we look at this and we say, well, what other response would there be? Why would you entertain this genocidal lunatic as he continues his rampage at the United Nations? He walks out there with this big this big lapel pin thing he had on, a giant QR code. He looked ridiculous. His speech was even more ridiculous. You said he had a Keir Starmer moment. I say he has a Jeb Bush moment, telling the crowd, his own paid actors in the crowd, in the audience, to laugh and clap for him. But it really shows the state of affairs right now. The world doesn't stand with Israel. The United States Congress does, and they'll give them a standing ovation every 50 seconds. But the world does not stand and will not entertain this madness any longer.
The flotilla of gallant siege breakers from many countries and dozens of ships, maybe scores of ships by now, throughout a media blackout, are steadily making their way to Gaza, and they have now been joined by an Italian warship and a Spanish warship, because both of these countries have a substantial number of nationals on board whose lives are at risk from the already begun constant drone attacks on the flotilla of peaceful people bringing aid to a starving and destitute people. The Italian government had to be forced to do this by widespread labor unrest in the docks, by mass civil actions and protests on the streets of Italy. The Spanish government, well in advance of the Italian, has also decided to send a warship. This means, Jackson, if Israel attacks the flotilla, these warships will become engaged. And if they do, if Israel fires on NATO warships, from Italy and Spain. An Article 5 moment will have arisen, and NATO will be honor-bound, if not treaty-bound, to come to the rescue of the Italian and Spanish naval forces. This story is sailing towards a very, very big conclusion, don't you think?
I do, and I wonder how far those naval vessels are actually going to join along with the Global Summit flotilla, whether they're going to try and actually get that flotilla all the way to Gaza and get the aid into Gaza for the first time. This would be the success of an operation of this kind. So we'll see how far they go. Greece, their Navy, has also notably said that they will ensure the safe passage of the flotilla onward to Gaza. So that's a third country that's come out. But I think the important point here is just how serious countries are taking the aggression from Israel against these peace activists who are not armed. They're on like sailboats. They have aid. I guess that's a weapon against Israel. Aid is a weapon. And Italy won't even recognize a Palestinian state. Italy is still supplying, defensive weapons, as they call them, to the Zionist entity to carry out this genocide. But Italy understands that Israel is so deranged that they actually might, in fact, try to sink these ships or take out the people on the ships. And this is something Israel has denied doing. They said, we didn't launch any drones. We didn't do any chemical attacks on the people on these boats. But they were actually debunked by the U.S. Special Envoy, Tom Barrack, who came out and said that Israel has committed attacks in Tunisian waters over the past few weeks. So Israel is doing this. Everyone is very concerned. I'll say, nod of the head to Italy, but a bigger salute to Spain, because Spain is really sticking their necks out. The Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, he's not perfect. He's not good on Russia, as I understand. But when it comes to this issue where we have so few voices in the West who are actually doing anything, he is really sticking his neck out to try and show the world that there's some dignity left in Western countries.
Amen to that. Now, not unadjacent to this discussion so far is the ongoing crisis around the murder in plain sight, in broad daylight, of the Turning Point USA founder and star, Charlie Kirk. I've never seen an official narrative die so quickly and so completely, comprehensively, almost embarrassing to recall that just a week ago we were told this trans activist on a roof with a World War I rifle took out with perfect accuracy the jugular vein of a man 150 yards away, and that nobody else was involved. Despite the decoys, despite the reported drone activity around the arena, despite the audio and visual evidence to the contrary, despite the extraordinary conduct of the post-crime scrub of evidence, despite the lack of an inquest, the lack of any involvement of the coroner, that we were asked to believe that story. But nobody in America now believes it, do they?
No one believes it. I mean, even at the funeral service of Charlie Kirk, you had announcers there from the Trump-sanctioned media outlets on the right wing that were very close with Charlie Kirk. And the announcers, who are all very, very, very good friends with Charlie and worked with him for years for this media network, they were saying things like, I don't believe the official story. None of us up here believe the official FBI narrative. We were speaking with thousands of people in the crowd waiting to come into the funeral. They don't believe the official story. I mean, just you don't even have to look at any of the other evidence. All you have to look at is the claim that a 30-06 round was allegedly the round that was used to assassinate Charlie Kirk. This is a round, for people who don't know, that hunters use to hunt elk and moose. And if you shoot it through a moose, it'll go through and hit another moose behind it and go through that moose. They use this to shoot grizzly bears, but they're telling us that, hypothetically, if this really was a 30-06, that it didn't completely blow off the head of Charlie Kirk. Not to get too, detailed here, but that's what it would have done. At least there would have been an exit wound, but they're telling us there's no exit wound. We have to believe whatever they say because they won't show us any autopsy report. There's some conflicting reports over whether an autopsy even happened. There was a FBI or a police dispatch from the local police department which said that no autopsy happened. That hasn't been confirmed, but in the state of Utah, autopsies are legally mandated for murder victims. So there's so much to unpack here. I think we all need to come together and just admit that this is a cover-up. The official story doesn't add up. This was some sort of a conspiratorial operation that was undertaken to kill Charlie Kirk. And beyond that, we're not going to get the truth, at least not for another 50 or 100 years, because right now the powers that be are muddying the waters. They're filling the internet and social media with tons of crazy different theories that really hold no weight, but they're trying to make everyone crazy looking at 100 different things, when the truth is the only thing we should be focused on is that we're getting fed a bunch of lies.
Now, finally, Jackson, I'm grateful always for your time. Two things, actually, if I may. Does the Democratic Party still exist in the United States? Does it have a leader? I haven't heard anything from them or about them. I mean, say what you like about Trump, he certainly fills the vacuum. He certainly fills all available political space. But I have no idea who is currently in charge of the Democrats. Have they wound themselves up?
I think the de facto leader of the Democratic Party right now is Gavin Newsom. And pending there's no accusations thrown his way over the next 3 years, I think that he'll probably be the nominee for the Democratic Party. He's not particularly popular, but he's a clean-cut politician. He's a Robert Redford type. Maybe he's got the good look. He's got the swag, and he can win the hearts and minds of middle-aged white women all across America. I think that's what the Democratic Party is banking on. But I don't think that's enough. I think their eyes have been open to what's going on in this world, and it's not as simple as that anymore. You actually have to at least lie to people that you're going to fix some of these problems that are going on, which is what Trump did. But we all see how far that got us with Donald Trump in the White House.
So finally, the last thing. Quoting or misquoting or paraphrasing Oscar Wilde, Trump definitely bears the impression of the last person to sit upon him, like the proverbial sofa. And it was bad luck in a way that for those of us who want to see an end to the NATO-Russia war, it was bad luck that Zelensky caught him on a day when he could well and truly impress him, and suddenly the little dictator who had no cards, who was risking World War III, and who may very well be a thief, has become a heroic figure who can have all the weapons that NATO is prepared to pay for. Is that what happened?
Yes. I mean, before Trump was even elected, I think a lot of us predicted that he would give some half-measure peace deal to the Russians. Russians wouldn't accept that. He'd get very upset, and Western escalation would materialize under the Trump administration if he was elected. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. But I think the more important aspect here is that this is all about making sure that Europe is as dependent as possible on U.S. Oil and gas, as well as U.S. controlled supply chains all across the world. If you look at what Trump's saying when he spoke to the coalition of the willing, as they called themselves, he said, I think you should really back off the purchases of Russian oil, the refined petroleum that comes through India. You should back off that, and the gas that Hungary and Slovakia are still taking. Well, why is he saying that? Because he wants Europe to buy American goods. In the same week, we saw that Brussels told Poland to cut off the border with Belarus. That is the main trade artery for Chinese goods into the European Union. Now, as I understand, that might be up in the air right now as to whether or not that border is still closed. But you can see what's happening here. Trump is trying to pressure Europe into a position where they will be weak, bogged down, fighting Russia. The U.S. doesn't have to get directly involved, and Europe will become another weak proxy that the U.S. will inevitably make a lot of money off of.